Table for one?
Yes, but I'm not alone. I'm recently married.
Yes.
My husband is off conducting business.
Mandy, nobody cares.
The magic of a great sitcom often lies in its familiar faces, the characters who feel like part of our own families. But sometimes that familiarity is an illusion. Behind the curtain, creative disputes, tragic events, or simple casting decisions can lead to a character returning with a brand new actor in the role. Here are the 20 beloved sitcom characters you didn't know were recast. 1. Harriet Winslow on Family Matters.
Oh, so now it's my fault that Ferguson's is charged with all this overtime?
Well, sir, I'm not blaming anybody for it. All I'm saying is
Good,
that...
because I'm not going to approve it.
For 9 seasons, the Winslow family was the heart of the TGIF lineup, and its matriarch, Harriet Winslow, was its soul. For most of the show's run, she was played by the talented Jo Marie Payton, who brought warmth, humor, and a no-nonsense attitude to the role. She was the perfect anchor in a house increasingly dominated by the antics of their nerdy neighbor, Steve Urkel. But here's the shocking part. Payton didn't finish the series. Midway through the final season, she abruptly left the show. The reason? Creative frustration. As the show became more and more focused on the Urkel character, Payton felt the rest of the cast, particularly her role as the family's core, was being sidelined. She reached her breaking point and walked away. The producers, unwilling to end the show, simply recast the role with actress Judy-Ann Elder, who played Harriet for the remaining handful of episodes. The swap was so sudden and unexplained that it left many longtime viewers completely bewildered. Payton's departure was not just about Urkel's dominance, but also involved contract disputes and a lack of creative control. She later revealed in interviews that she had pitched storylines to keep Harriet central to the narrative, but they were consistently ignored. Judy-Ann Elder, a respected stage and screen actress, faced the daunting task of stepping into a role so closely associated with Payton. Elder leaned into a slightly softer, more subdued Harriet, which some fans felt clashed with the character's established strength. The recast sparked debates among fans about whether the show should have ended rather than replacing such a pivotal figure, highlighting the challenges of maintaining a sitcom's core identity during major casting changes. 2. Louise Tate on Bewitched.
Aunt Clara, I think I heard the baby cry.
You did? No, I didn't hear the baby cry.
Aunt Clara.
Bewitched is legendary for its recasting drama, with the 2 Darrens and 2 Gladys Kravitzes being the most famous examples. But they weren't the only residents of Morning Glory Circle to get a new face. Louise Tate, the wife of Darren's boss, Larry Tate, was also played by 2 different actresses. For the first 2 seasons, the role was played by Irene Vernon. She was a regular presence, often getting caught up in Samantha's magical mishaps alongside her husband. However, Vernon left the show after season 2 when her husband fell ill. The producers then cast actress Casey Rogers, who stepped into the role for the remainder of the series. Rogers had a different energy, playing Louise as more comedic and eccentric. To make the transition less jarring, the producers had Rogers dye her hair to match Vernon's, but dedicated fans definitely noticed the change in the character's personality. Irene Vernon's exit was not only due to her husband's illness, but also reportedly influenced by tensions with the show's star, Elizabeth Montgomery, who wielded significant influence behind the scenes. Vernon's more reserved portrayal of Louise contrasted with Rogers' broader, almost vaudevillian approach, which aligned better with the show's increasingly zany tone in later seasons. Rogers, a former B-movie actress, brought a theatrical flair that made Louise more of a foil to Samantha's magic, often stealing scenes with her exaggerated reactions. The hair-dyeing trick was only partially successful, as eagle-eyed fans noticed subtle differences in mannerisms and vocal delivery, making this recast a subtle but significant shift in the Bewitched universe. Colmus Newman on Seinfeld.
You looking for someone?
Don't play coy with me, Newman. I'm not in the mood.
Coy? I'm not being coy.
Is he being coy?
Yeah, coy.
You're being coy.
Hello, Newman. Jerry's sneering greeting to his arch nemesis is one of the most famous lines in sitcom history. For years, actor Wayne Knight perfectly embodied the scheming, malevolent, and hilarious postman. His physical presence and gleefully evil performance made Newman a legendary recurring character. But the Newman we all know and loathe wasn't the first. The character's debut was in the Season 2 episode The Revenge, but he was heard, not seen. And his voice was provided by none other than Seinfeld co-creator Larry David. David's version was more of a wheezing, pathetic neighbor. When the character was set to make his first on-screen appearance in Season 3, David knew he wasn't right for the part physically. He and Jerry Seinfeld had been impressed with Wayne Knight's work in the film Basic Instinct and cast him in the role, allowing him to become the iconic villain we remember today. Larry David's vocal performance as Newman in The Revenge was initially a placeholder, as the character wasn't fully fleshed out. David's distinctive voice, later recognizable from Curb Your Enthusiasm, gave Newman a more neurotic, less menacing edge that didn't quite fit the show's evolving vision for the character. Wayne Knight's casting was a stroke of genius, as his physical comedy and ability to convey gleeful malice elevated Newman to a fan-favorite antagonist. Knight later shared that he improvised much of Newman's physicality, like his exaggerated swagger, which wasn't scripted but became a defining trait. This recast transformed Newman from a minor nuisance into one of Seinfeld's most memorable figures, proving how critical casting can be to a character's legacy. 4. Principal Skinner on The Simpsons.
Forced to subsist on a thin stew made of fish, vegetables, prawns, coconut milk, and 4 kinds of rice.
For nearly a decade, Principal Seymour Skinner was the uptight, endlessly tormented foil to Bart Simpson's antics. He was a pillar of the Springfield community, a Vietnam veteran with a comically unhealthy relationship with his mother. Then, in the controversial season 9 episode The Principal and the Pauper, the show dropped a bombshell. The man we knew as Seymour Skinner was an imposter. His real name was Armand Tamzarian, a troubled orphan from Capital City who had stolen the identity of a fellow soldier he presumed was dead. The episode introduced the real Sergeant Seymour Skinner and saw Armand Tamzarian leave Springfield. Fans were outraged. They hated the idea that a beloved character's entire history was a lie. The backlash was so intense that the show's writers essentially erased the episode from canon. In a later episode, Skinner himself refers to the incident as something that was never to be spoken of again, making this one of the weirdest and most meta recasts in TV history. A character who was recast within the story, only to be unofficially recast back to his original self due to fan rebellion. The fan backlash to The Principal and the Pauper was so severe that it reportedly caused rifts among The Simpsons writing staff, with some writers defending the episode as a bold narrative experiment and others viewing it as a betrayal of the show's established lore. The real Sergeant Skinner, voiced by Martin Sheen, was portrayed as a more heroic but less quirky figure, lacking the neurotic charm fans loved in Armand Tamzarian. The episode's meta-resolution, where Springfield's residents force Armand to resume being Skinner, was a rare acknowledgement of fan influence on the show's direction. This incident remains a cautionary tale in sitcom history about the risks of tampering with a beloved character's identity, and it's still debated among fans as one of the most divisive moments in The Simpsons' long run. Vides. Mandy Baxter on Last Man Standing.
If you don't change this, they're not gonna let you speak.
I'm not changing it.
You know what? I'm gonna say something right now. I really don't want to, but I'm so frustrated. I just feel like I have to. Please.
When the family sitcom Last Man Standing was canceled by ABC after 6 seasons, fans were devastated. But a year later, it was revived by Fox, bringing back Tim Allen and most of the original cast. One of the key family members was the fashion-obsessed middle daughter, Mandy Baxter, played with perfect comedic timing by Molly Ephraim. However, when the show was revived, Ephraim had already committed to other projects and was unable to return. So, what did the producers do? They simply recast the role. Actress Molly McCook stepped in to play Mandy. The change was significant. McCook was noticeably taller than Ephraim and brought a different energy to the part. The show even made a meta joke about it in the revival's first episode, with the family commenting on how different Mandy looked. It's a prime example of a modern recast forced by the strange logistics of a show being brought back from the dead. The recast of Mandy Baxter sparked heated discussions among fans, with some praising McCook's fresh take and others struggling to accept the change due to Ephraim's established chemistry with the cast. McCook faced significant online criticism, prompting her to address the backlash publicly, emphasizing her respect for Ephraim's portrayal while trying to make the role her own. The producer's decision to acknowledge the recast with humor was a nod to the show's self-aware tone, but it also highlighted the logistical challenges of reviving a sitcom after a cancellation. McCook's Mandy leaned more into physical comedy, which some felt complemented the show's new network and slightly altered comedic style, but the recast remains a polarizing moment in Last Man Standing's history. 6. Topanga Lawrence on Boy Meets World.
You're not gonna, kiss me now, are you?
Would it be your first kiss?
Hey, don't come near me.
Topanga Lawrence, Corey Matthews' soulmate, is one of the most beloved characters of the TGIF era. Danielle Fishel played her for 7 seasons, evolving the character from a quirky hippie kid into the smart, grounded heart of the show. But Fishel was almost not Topanga at all. In one of the wildest casting stories of the 90s, she was actually fired on her first day. The role was originally conceived as a small, one-off part for a very different actress. Fishel was cast but struggled with her lines during rehearsal, and the producers let her go, hiring actress Marla Sokoloff, who would later play Gia on Full House instead. However, the show's director, David Traynor, felt Fishel had a unique spark and fought for her to get another chance. They brought her back, she nailed the performance, and the character was so popular that she became a series regular. It was a near miss that completely changed the course of a legendary sitcom. Danielle Fishel's initial firing was a result of her inexperience as a young actress, compounded by the pressure of performing alongside seasoned child actors like Ben Savage. Marla Sokoloff's brief stint as Topanga was markedly different, with a more conventional cool girl vibe that didn't capture the eccentric charm the writers envisioned. Traynor's advocacy for Fishel was pivotal, as he saw her potential to bring depth to Topanga's quirky persona, which later evolved into a fan-favorite blend of intelligence and heart. Fishel's return not only saved her career, but also shaped Boy Meets World's romantic core, as the Corey-Topanga relationship became a cultural touchstone for 90s audiences, proving how close the show came to missing its defining dynamic. 7. Mindy Hunter on Friends.
What you guys doing here?
We are here to break up with you.
Both of you?
In the pilot episode of Friends, we learned that Rachel Green fled her wedding to Barry Farber after realizing she didn't love him. The woman he ended up going on their honeymoon with? Rachel's maid of honor and supposed best friend, Mindy. The character first appears in Season 2, played by actress Jennifer Grey, famous for Dirty Dancing. She perfectly captured the awkwardness and guilt of a woman who betrayed her best friend. But when the character returned in Season 6 for Barry and Mindy's wedding, she looked completely different. Jennifer Grey was no longer in the role. Instead, Mindy was played by actress Jana Marie Hupp. There was no explanation for the change, leaving viewers to wonder what happened. The swap remains a piece of Friends trivia that stumps even die-hard fans. Jennifer Grey's departure from the role of Mindy is rumored to have been influenced by her own career shifts, including a high-profile rhinoplasty that altered her appearance and reportedly affected her confidence in taking on prominent roles. Jana Marie Hupp's portrayal leaned more into a polished, less flustered Mindy, which some fans felt undermined the character's original awkward charm. The lack of explanation for the recast was typical of Friends' approach to minor characters, but it frustrated fans who noticed the change during the wedding episode's high-stakes emotional moments. This recast underscores how even a show as meticulously crafted as Friends could overlook continuity for secondary characters, leaving a small but nagging mystery in its legacy. 8. Grandpa Munster on the Munsters. Al Lewis's portrayal of Grandpa Munster, the wisecracking, bat-loving, 378-year-old vampire, is one of the most iconic performances in classic TV. His gleeful cackle and failed magical schemes were a highlight of every episode. He and Fred Gwynne Herman Munster had incredible comedic chemistry. However, Lewis wasn't the original choice. In the unaired color pilot of the show, the role of Grandpa was played by another actor named Nate Happy Derman. The producers felt Derman's portrayal was too sinister and not funny enough. When the show was picked up, Fred Gwynne pushed for his old car 54, Where Are You? Co-star Al Lewis to get the part. Lewis was brought in, the pilot was reshot in black and white, and the rest is sitcom history. Nate Derman's portrayal of Grandpa in the original pilot was darker and more menacing, which clashed with the family-friendly, comedic tone the producers wanted for the Munsters. Al Lewis, a veteran of vaudeville and comedy, brought a mischievous warmth to Grandpa that made him instantly lovable despite his vampiric quirks. Gwynne's advocacy for Lewis was rooted in their prior collaboration, where their chemistry had already proven electric. The decision to reshoot the pilot in black and white also enhanced Grandpa's gothic charm, as Lewis's exaggerated expressions popped in the monochromatic format. This recast was a defining moment that ensured the Munsters' enduring appeal as a lighthearted monster comedy. 9th, Crichton on Red Dwarf.
Hey, I got it. We laser our way through. An excellent suggestion, sir, with just 2 minor drawbacks. 1, we don't have a power source for the lasers, and 2, we don't have any lasers.
The British sci-fi sitcom. Red Dwarf is a cult classic known for its hilarious characters, including the neurotic sanitation mechanoid, Crichton. For over 30 years, actor Robert Llewellyn has been synonymous with the character, buried under pounds of rubber makeup to bring the guilt-ridden robot to life. But Llewellyn wasn't the first to play the part. Crichton made his debut in a single season, 2 episode, where he was played by actor David Ross. Ross's portrayal was slightly different, with a more angular mask and a different vocal tick. When the character was brought back as a series regular for season 3, Ross was unavailable due to a scheduling conflict. The role was recast with Llewellyn, who completely remade the character in his own image, turning a one-off guest star into one of the show's most beloved figures. David Ross's Crichton was designed as a one-off character, with a more mechanical and less emotive performance that suited the episode's standalone story. Robert Llewellyn's casting came after the writers decided to expand Crichton's role, requiring a more expressive actor to handle the character's growing emotional complexity. Llewellyn's extensive makeup process, sometimes taking up to 6 hours, allowed him to fully inhabit Crichton, adding layers of neurotic humor and pathos that became central to Red Dwarf's appeal. Ross later returned to the show in a different role, a nod to his original contribution, but Llewellyn's Crichton remains a cornerstone of the series' cult status. 10. Ben Geller on Friends.
Good. Ross, Ben just said hi.
What?
Ben just said hi.
What, the word hi?
Yeah, no, my uncle hi.
Playing a child on a long-running sitcom is tough, as kids have a tendency to grow up. Ross Geller's son, Ben, was a recurring presence throughout all 10 seasons of Friends. And because of that long span, he was played by 4 different actors. In his first appearance as an infant, he was played by Michael Gunderson. As a toddler in seasons 3 through 5, he was played by twin brothers Charles Thomas Allen and John Christopher Allen. But the Ben everyone remembers is the one from seasons 6 through 8, played by future Riverdale star Cole Sprouse. Sprouse's version was a mischievous, joke-playing kid who had great chemistry with the cast, especially Jennifer Aniston. It's a classic example of a silent recast, where a child character is swapped out as they age up, with the audience simply accepting the new face. The use of multiple actors for Ben was a practical necessity, as child labor laws and the physical demands of aging characters required frequent recasting. Cole Sprouse, already a seasoned child actor from Grace Under Fire, brought a precocious charm to Ben that made his scenes with Ross and Rachel particularly memorable. The Allen twins' tenure as Ben coincided with the show's peak popularity, but their limited screen time meant the transition to Sprouse was seamless for most viewers. Interestingly, Sprouse later reflected that working on Friends was a formative experience, teaching him comedic timing that he carried into his later career. This multi-actor approach to Ben illustrates the logistical challenges of child roles in long-running sitcoms. 11. Barbara Jean on Reba.
Seriously, Barbara Jean, don't you think I'm a bit overdressed for a restaurant that serves burn your butt chili? I mean...
On the sitcom, Reba, the breakout character, was arguably Barbara Jean, the cheerful, slightly dim-witted dental hygienist who had an affair with Reba's husband and became his new wife. Melissa Peterman's performance was a masterclass in comedic timing, turning a character who could have been a villain into a lovable, scene-stealing goofball. It's hard to imagine anyone else in the role, but in the unaired pilot, Barbara Jean was played by a completely different actress, Park Overall. While a talented actress in her own right, Overall's take on the character was apparently more abrasive and less goofy. The producers felt the chemistry wasn't right and made the crucial decision to recast. Peterman was brought in, and her portrayal completely changed the dynamic of the show, creating one of modern sitcoms' most memorable characters. Park Overall's portrayal of Barbara Jean in the pilot leaned heavily into the character's role as a homewrecker, which risked making her unlikable and polarizing for audiences. Melissa Peterman, a relative newcomer at the time, auditioned after the pilot and brought an unexpected warmth and zaniness that softened Barbara Jean's edges, making her a fan favorite. Peterman's chemistry with Reba McEntire was immediate, turning their adversarial relationship into a comedic highlight of the series. The recast decision was a gamble that paid off, as Peterman's Barbara Jean became so popular that she later reunited with McEntire in other projects, cementing their status as a beloved sitcom duo. 12. Enid Kelso on That 70s Show. Jackie Burkhart's mother, Enid Kelso, was a recurring source of comedic tension on That 70s Show. She was a wealthy, somewhat absent mother who was often seen hitting on her daughter's much younger male friends. In her first appearance in Season 3, Enid was played by character actress Anne Rourke. When the character returned for a more significant arc in Season 6 as a newswoman at the local TV station, she had a new, much more famous face: Brooke Shields. The recast was likely done to bring some star power to the role for a multi-episode story. Shields' comedic chops were a great fit for the show, but it was still a noticeable change for fans who remembered the original Enid. Anne Rourke's Enid was a more understated, slightly sleazy character, fitting the show's early, grounded tone. Brooke Shields' casting in Season 6 was a deliberate move to capitalize on her fame and comedic versatility, especially as That 70s Show leaned into bigger guest stars in later seasons. Shields brought a glamorous, over-the-top energy to Enid, which amplified the character's inappropriate flirtations and made her a memorable part of the season's storyline. The recast also reflected the show's shift toward broader humor, but some fans felt it disrupted the continuity of Jackie's family dynamic, making Enid's transformation a notable, if flashy, change in the series. 13. Pop Solomon on the Goldbergs.
I think she's eyeballing me. Move your melon, Murray, so I can enchant her with a coy wink.
This can't be real.
This is one of the most tragic and unique recasts in television history. For 8 seasons, veteran actor George Segal was a beloved part of the Goldbergs as the family's eccentric and lovable grandfather, Pop Solomon. His performance was a highlight of the show. Tragically, Siegel passed away in March 2021 before he could finish filming the 8th season. The producers were faced with the difficult task of how to handle the character's exit. In a touching tribute, they used previously filmed, unused footage of Siegel for his final appearance. For scenes he hadn't filmed, they used a body double with Siegel's face digitally added in post-production. It was a heartbreaking but creative solution to give a beloved actor and his iconic character a proper send-off, a recast born out of love and necessity. George Siegel's death was a profound loss for the Goldbergs cast and crew, who considered him the heart of the show's family dynamic. The use of digital effects to complete Pops' final scenes was a pioneering move for a sitcom, blending practical filmmaking with cutting-edge technology to honor Siegel's legacy. The producers also incorporated a tribute episode that celebrated Pop's life, using real cast members' memories of Siegel to inform the script's emotional weight. Fans praised the sensitive handling of the recast, but many noted the bittersweet absence of Siegel's infectious energy in later seasons, underscoring how integral he was to the show's warmth and humor. 14th April O'Neil on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1987.
It's Krang Prime. They're meditating, communicating. I can hear their thoughts.
The yellow jumpsuited, quick-witted reporter April O'Neil from the classic 1987 animated series is an icon to a generation of kids. Her voice, full of spunk and determination, was provided by actress Renee Jacobs for almost the entire run of the show. She was the Turtles' first human ally and a central part of their adventures. However, during the show's final 2 seasons, known as the Red Sky seasons, the series underwent a tonal shift to become darker and more action-oriented. As part of this overhaul, Jacobs was replaced as the voice of April by actress Veronica Taylor, who would later become famous as the voice of Ash Ketchum in Pokémon. The change was subtle but noticeable to dedicated fans, marking a definitive shift in the classic cartoons era. The Red Sky seasons of TMNT were a response to declining ratings and competition from darker animated series like Batman, the Animated Series. Veronica Taylor's April O'Neil had a slightly huskier, more intense delivery, reflecting the show's new action-heavy focus. Renee Jacobs, whose voice defined April's plucky charm, was reportedly disappointed by the recast, but understood the creative shift. Taylor's experience in anime dubbing brought a new dynamic to April, aligning her with the show's grittier tone, but some fans felt it lost the original warmth that made the character a beloved part of 80s pop culture. This recast remains a footnote in TMNT's history, tied to the show's controversial final chapters. 15th Dr. Marvin Monroe on The Simpsons.
Wow! Okay, you want to kill each other. That's good. That's healthy.
Another wild story from Springfield involves the gravelly voiced psychiatrist, Dr. Marvin Monroe. Voiced by Harry Shearer, the character was a fixture in the show's early seasons. However, performing the harsh, raspy voice was physically taxing on Shearer's throat. As a result, the writers decided to kill him off. His death was announced on a local radio show, and his tombstone was even shown in one episode. But then, years later, Dr. Monroe suddenly reappeared at Marge's book, signing in the season 15 episode diatribe of A Mad Housewife. When Marge commented that she thought he was dead, he simply replied that he had been very sick. The writers decided it would be funnier to bring him back from the dead than to keep him gone, effectively resurrecting the character and creating one of the most bizarre unrecasts ever. Harry Shearer's vocal strain from voicing Dr. Monroe was so severe that he reportedly required medical attention, prompting the writers to retire the character to preserve his health. The decision to bring Monroe back was a playful jab at sitcom tropes, with the writers leaning into the absurdity of resurrecting a character without explanation. Monroe's return was brief but memorable, as his gruff demeanor contrasted humorously with the episode's lighter tone. Fans have since speculated that the writers used Monroe's revival to test the boundaries of The Simpsons' flexible continuity, making this unrecast a quirky example of the show's willingness to break its own rules for a laugh. 16. Blanche Madison on The Odd Couple. In the classic 70s sitcom The Odd Couple, one of the main sources of conflict for the fastidious Felix Unger was the freewheeling lifestyle of his roommate, Oscar Madison. Oscar's ex-wife, Blanche, was a recurring character who often popped up to cause trouble. What many fans don't know is that Blanche was played by two different actresses. In her first appearance, she was played by Brett Summers, who was actor Jack Klugman's Oscar real-life wife at the time. However, for all of her subsequent appearances, the role was taken over by Eleanor Donahue, best known for playing Betty on Father Knows Best. Donahue became the face of Blanche for the rest of the show's run. Brett Summers' casting as Blanche in her debut was a nod to her real-life chemistry with Jack Klugman, but her limited acting experience at the time led to a performance that some producers felt was too subdued for the character's contentious role. Eleanor Donahue, a sitcom veteran, brought a sharper, more polished edge to Blanche, enhancing her dynamic with Felix and Oscar. Donahue's casting also aligned with the show's growing emphasis on polished comedic banter, and her familiarity with classic TV audiences added a layer of nostalgia. The recast went largely unnoticed by casual viewers, but it marked a subtle shift in Blanche's portrayal from a personal cameo to a more professional performance. 17. Ernie on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia has a cast of bizarre and hilarious side characters. One of them is Ernie, the inept corporate drone who tries to hire the gang in the Season 2 episode The Gang Goes Corporate. The role was played by Nate Mooney, who did a fantastic job as the flustered office worker. But Ernie actually appeared once before in the unaired pilot episode Charlie Has Cancer. In that original version, the character was played by David Hornsby, who is better known to fans as the Sad Sack, perpetually abused Matthew Rickety Cricket Mara. The pilot was later reshot and re-edited for broadcast, with Hornsby's Ernie scenes being cut, but it's a great piece of trivia for fans of the show. David Hornsby's initial portrayal of Ernie in the unaired pilot was more deadpan, reflecting the show's early, less polished tone. When the pilot was reworked, Nate Mooney's casting brought a nervous, bumbling energy that better suited the chaotic humor of It's Always Sunny. Hornsby's transition to playing Rickety Cricket was a fortunate pivot, as his performance became one of the show's most iconic recurring roles. The recast of Ernie highlights the show's scrappy beginnings, where budget constraints and creative experimentation led to multiple casting changes before the series found its footing as a cult classic. 18. Little Ricky on I Love Lucy.
He dragged you.
Ay, 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 ay.
Daddy, are you sick?
As the son of television's most famous couple, Little Ricky was a crucial part of I Love Lucy. Because the show spanned several years, the character had to age, leading to a revolving door of child actors. Initially, the role of baby Little Ricky was played by twin brothers Joseph and Michael Mayer. As the character got older, he was played by another set of twins, Richard and Ronald Lee Simmons. Finally, when the show needed a school-aged child who could play the drums, they cast Richard Keith. Keith is the actor most famously associated with the role, but he was just the last in a long line of Little Rickies, a necessity of long-term television production. The multiple recasts of Little Ricky were driven by both practical needs and the show's groundbreaking approach to depicting a child's growth on screen, mirroring Lucille Ball's real-life pregnancy. The Mayer twins were chosen for their resemblance to Desi Arnaz, while the Simmons twins brought a slightly older, more active presence to the role. Richard Keith's casting was a strategic move, as his drumming skills added a new dimension to Little Ricky's character, aligning with the show's musical elements. The seamless transitions between actors showcased I Love Lucy's innovative production techniques, but it also set a precedent for how sitcoms handle aging child characters. 19th, Jasmine on Saved by the Bell. This might be the most obscure and bizarre recast on the entire list. In the Season 4, Saved by the Bell episode, The Friendship Business, Tori Spelling guest stars as Violet Bickerstaff, a nerdy classmate who Zach helps for a class project. Violet's friend is a minor character named Jasmine. Here's the wild part. Jasmine is played by two different actresses in the same episode. In her first scene, she is played by actress Heather Treston. In her second scene, with no explanation whatsoever, she is played by actress Jennifer Manley. It's a continuity error so blatant and for such a minor character that it has become a holy grail for die-hard fans of the show, a perfect example of a production mistake making its way to air. The Jasmine recast is one of the most perplexing errors in sitcom history, likely resulting from rushed production schedules and limited budgets during Saved by the Bell's final season. Heather Treston and Jennifer Manley had such different appearances and deliveries that the switch is jarring upon rewatch, yet it went unnoticed by most casual viewers at the time. Fans have speculated that the error occurred due to last-minute scheduling conflicts or an oversight in editing, as the show was juggling multiple guest stars in its final episodes. This bizarre recast has become a cult favorite among trivia buffs, cementing Saved by the Bell's reputation for quirky production quirks. 20. Pam's landlady on The Office.
So, what did we decide for Michael? The bottle of rum or the seashell alarm clock?
You know what? Can I have the weekend to decide?
Bottle of rum it is.
Even the most dedicated fans of The Office might have missed this one. In the Season 2 episode The Dundies, Pam Beasley gets into an argument with her then-fiancé Roy at the awards show and has to get a ride home from Michael. When they arrive at her house, her landlady comes out to see what the commotion is. The role is played by actress Margaret Roach. 4 seasons later, in the episode Niagara, Pam's landlady makes another appearance, this time attending Pam and Jim's wedding. But it's not Margaret Roach. The role was quietly recast with another veteran actress, Peggy Stewart. It's a tiny, blink-and-you'll-miss-it change that demonstrates how even the smallest background roles can be subject to the unpredictable nature of television casting. The recast of Pam's landlady is a testament to The Office's commitment to continuity for even minor characters, as the role's reappearance after 4 seasons was a deliberate nod to fans. Margaret Roach's brief appearance in The Dundies was understated, fitting the show's mockumentary realism, while Peggy Stewart's portrayal in Niagara had a slightly warmer, more grandmotherly vibe that suited the wedding's festive tone. The change likely stemmed from Roach's unavailability or the producer's desire for a recognizable character actress in the later episode. This subtle recast is a hidden gem for The Office fans, showcasing the show's attention to detail even in its smallest roles.